Dinna take it personal, dear. I've got me a promise to keep. Say hello to Sheila, mates. Let's have a wee play with the laws of physics, shall we? Come on, little mutie. We've got work to do.
Hey everybody, welcome to our next Devstream, which is all about Season 7. We've been really excited to talk about this one. I've got a great cast of folks from the studio that talk about a lot of stuff for this episode, so I think we're going to get right into it. Season 7, it's here. It launches on November 4th, and we got a ton of stuff to talk about. Really quickly, some of the things we're going to be showing you and going into some depth. The patch notes are right here that you got this Devstream from, so feel free to start reading through those to get caught up. Our trailers are live. We've got lots of blogs that are live and going to be going live up until the launch of the game, so keep an eye on PlayApex Twitter and PlayApex YouTube. Lots of new content and trailers. We're like really proud of the stuff that, you know, marketing, brand, design, art, everybody kind of put together for this season. It's one of our like biggest ones that we've done. So first off, we're going to be talking about our new map, Olympus. We've got a new vehicle that's part of Olympus that we're going to be going into some detail about. Horizon, our new legend, a new feature for clubs. It's going to prove kind of the social stuff that we have going on in the game. We're on Steam as of November 4th with the launch of Season 7. We got a light rework on Battlepass, and then we're going to go into some more details on the patch notes on some of the balance changes that we're making to the game for Season 7. So let's get right into it. First off, introducing Dave Osei for the first time on our Dev Streams. Premier level designer here at Respawn. He's been making cool stuff for us for a while, and Olympus, I know, has been your baby. So, Dave, why don't you walk us through a little bit about, you know, what Olympus is all about and what players can expect when it launches?
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Dave Osei, senior designer on Olympus. I've only been working on Olympus for a while, so it's really exciting to finally get this map out into the hands of you guys. So a brief overview of Olympus. This is a utopian, idyllic city floating in the sky, high above the planet Samathi. It's been turned into the new Apex arena based on some lore, which I'm sure you guys will be excited to find out. A few things that are different about Olympus is that it tries to blend the size of Kings Canyon with the open spaces of World's Edge. A lot of cover placed kind of takes those kind of cues of wanting to slow down gameplay, but also within a much more compact way. A few other differences are also that there's negative space. A big thing that's much different with Olympus is that when you hit those choke points, there isn't so much a lot of large canyon rocks that people expect to see, that they usually see in Kings Canyon and both World's Edge. But here, because of the negative space where players can actually, you know, jump off if they absolutely tried to die, you get a lot more interesting spaces and dynamics where you can see players coming from opposite directions from these chokes. You can even shoot through them through the negative space. And this will change up a lot of how you approach these spaces. Beforehand, it was very black or white. You could either see players across the other way, you didn't see them at all because of those large canyon rocks. And in Olympus, you can clearly see across them and try to traverse and find your way across. Another difference for Olympus is that the POIs are a bit larger than players expected to see other ones. Shorting Factory is probably a really good example of the kind of POI size we tried to go with for Olympus for a few of them. And cover balance, of course, between those two. We had tried to balance between the vehicle having enough space to traverse the map, but also enough cover for players to move in and out. And that finding that balance is definitely a difficult part, but I think we landed to a really good spot.
It's so pretty.
It is so pretty. I think like that's one of the neat things to see. It's like another contrast too, where both World's Edge and Kings Canyon being, you know, these very gritty, organic environments. And this is the first one. This is like this pristine kind of, like you said, Dave, like a utopia. It's something you don't expect to see kind of in the Outlands when you're playing the game. So I think it's like a really neat contrast.
I was saying going into making Olympus, it was like, you know, we know how to, we've made big open terrain maps with big mountains. Are we going to do that again? Like how? That's, you know, map number 3 with the big open terrain. And it's like our Apex universe has this sort of endless possibilities. This idea to put a city in the sky and be able to like use the open space to separate players and stuff was just like a really fun thing that I think our universe gives us that a lot of other games don't have that opportunity, you know, especially if you're trying to be realistic, can't do stuff like that. So that was really exciting.
Yeah, the concept art note was super inspiring for me. when we were making a lot of the stuff in Olympus. Just the polygonal terrain was much different, and we had to test that a lot to see, can this even work? Because we're so used to just traditional terrain of rolling hills. And we still kind of get that, but when it's harsh edges and triangles everywhere, it's much, much different. Definitely takes a little bit to get used to, but when you do, it feels cool. It feels very different. It feels Apex. There's a lot of cool things, though, when you have a negative space, like Octane's jump pads. Sometimes I've seen players try and jump over those gaps with it because the double jump definitely helps. Of course, Pathfinders are super huge when it comes to traversing over that stuff, too. So there's a lot more cooler things you can do when it's not a giant rock blocking your space.
Yeah, any situations you might have had before that are pretty rare but possible in one of the other maps where you can go over the mountains. You know, sometimes you see a Pathfinder or somebody going over to do this like really crazy rotation. Now it's a lot easier. The Pathfinder can like literally cast a zipline across the pit and have a rotation that wouldn't exist really in Kings Canyon or World's Edge.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the challenges that Dave had were trying to make it as nice, as friendly as possible to players so that they can't fall off easily, right? There's lots of so many early playtests where you're just fighting, strafe off and off to the edge, and so all these fences everywhere that you can see through but you can't climb, and all these things that Dave figured out that really started to help.
Yeah, that was a tough one. There's a lot of playtests where people just fall off, and it's just like, I don't know how we're going to contain players. We don't want the, block their line of sight just like every other map with a giant thing. We want to keep it open. And also getting the fences to the point where they don't feel like they're imposing. Like there's just this big thing in your way. You're just like, you can still shoot through them. They're fairly easy to like ignore and go through. So it feels much better, much better than it was originally. You don't want to fall off the map.
So how is rotation for Olympus going to work for players when it launches in Season 7?
Yeah, it's a good one. So we have the Trident zipline balloons for players to get around, but there's also a few other ways for players to use and traverse. We have the phase runner, which is this massive industrial tube that houses phase energy for players to connect to 3 different main areas on Olympus. Usually it runs sort of in the middle of the map and kind of like this U curve. So it comes from like farms and there's 3 ways up, and then it lands in a huge POI we call Rift Aftermath. This was the explosion that went off inside Olympus that caused the entire city to be abandoned, and thus making it the next location for the Apex games. And then inside this rift is like an unstable portal that's just like trying to suck everything back in. And players can actually jump into that rift and then re-rotate back to the middle of the map again. It's a quicker way to get around the map, but of course it also has inherent risks. When you're going through these portals, just like you go through a race portal, you're not sure what's on the other side. Should I even really go through this? And players who are also waiting at the entrances and exits will also get a tell. There'll be a light that comes on with the warning sound to let you know that players are about to come out. And then for you on the other side, you can prepare, or for the other guys knowing that like this is a risky play, but I'm going to jump through this anyway because it's going to save us a ton of time. We're going to be able to rotate much faster to get outside the ring. And before you even ask, you can take ring damage while inside this industrial tube. You will not be able to avoid it.
That's a good catch. I think
one of those things that early on with Olympus we wanted to try and get was map-wide rotations, right? Like this concept of like, I drop over here on this side of the map and the ring's coming and it wants me to go to the other side of the map. Is there options that are high risk, high reward to just sort of get to the other side of the map really quickly? Vehicles are part of that, but the phase runner is a cool way to do that too. Dave, do you have any like favorite locations?
Ooh, good question.
Oh yeah, I got a few. The Rift for sure is another one, just because it's so iconic. You can see it from the plane. It takes up a huge, massive part of the map. That area is different than other areas because Olympus is so clean and very aesthetically, pleasing to look at, and the Rift is very dirty and broken because of this explosion that went off. So it plays much, much differently. There's also Bonsai Plaza, which is kind of like in the southern part of the map. It's also another big POI with 4 main sections that players can try and own. But it also is unique because it has essentially 2 POIs stacked on top of each other. There's the larger Bonsai Plaza, which is a mid-tier zone. It houses all the ground floor. And then there's almost the open air lounge area that we call the Reverie Lounge. And that will be familiar to some players who've seen the Season 4 trailer, Revenant and Loba. And that is a high tier loot drop. And so when players land up there, it's very much a my base, your base. connected via these like interesting tubes where you get these head-on-head fights, limited ways to get off unless you're a movement character. So that becomes a much starker difference than the gameplay you'll get down below, which is more for mid-range, long-range, than the short claustrophobic ones up top. I also forgot about the ship. So the ship that people see in World's Edge will take off, and I'm sure you've seen it already in the lore trailer. That'll take off and park itself into Olympus, and players can play within that. And that's very close quarters. It's both a POI and a choke for players rotating in around that north side of the map. So a lot of defensive characters can set up and try and hold the ship for as long as possible. It's difficult, but it's definitely possible. Watsons will have a lot of fun, especially Caustics.
And then as far as when we launch Season 7, within the playlist, Olympus will be the only available map in the regular playlist for its first 2 weeks, right, guys?
Yeah, first 2 weeks.
So we'll have lots of time for you guys, for players, for you all to dig into it. And speaking of which, we're adding something else cool for Season 7 that's going to go really nicely with Olympus, an Explore mode, which is a really cool new thing that we're doing. McCord, can you walk us through like how that's going to be available to players?
Yeah, we call it Olympus Preview. Explore mode is sort of our dev name for it. The thing that we noticed when we released World's Edge is that by the time Olympus comes out, we've played it a billion times. We know it very well, and it's hard to sort of remember that when you guys get to play it, you don't know what is going on. Like, you don't know where to go to get the good loot, where the loot even is, how to rotate from this spot to this spot. And doing that in the middle of a match is stressful and, can cause bad games for other players that already know that, just things like that. You just want time to figure it out. So preview mode is an LTM that we're going to have launch at Season 7 start. It's going to last for 1 week. It'll be in the extra playlist slot. And when you join in there, you go in there with 30 or 29 other players. So it's 30 people total, and you drop into the map like normal. And everyone's friendly. So you can pick up weapons and try them out. You can try out Horizon's kit. You can get on a vehicle and drive around. The ring's going to come in pretty quickly and quickly sort of push you to the end. And then when you get to the end, you'll see the dropship up in the sky. It'll sort of pick you up and then ask you to go again. And you'll do this 3 times in one match. So it just sort of gets you to like practice your drops. Like, where do I want to drop? What do I want to try to land and see what it's like? And then from there, the game wants me to get to the end of the ring. And how do I get there? Like the way our maps are designed, you can sometimes get to a spot where you're like, should I go right or left? There's like a choice I have to make, and I don't know what the right one is until you learn it. So this gives you reps on that. We'll see what people think. And worst case scenario, people get to learn the map for a week. Best case scenario, people are in there making memes and having fun. So
that's our map and the preview, which is going to be really, really cool. Let's talk about vehicles, which is another big part of the map, the Trident, that we've added, another thing we've been working on for quite a while. Now, this vehicle is exclusive to Olympus. It's the only map where you're going to have this available to you.
For Olympus, we wanted to build another tool for players to get around the map at their own will. It's kind of this cool aspect where players can get on this super fast idea because 3 people can jump on this thing and rotate around the map at will. And we kind of try to design the map in a way where it feels easy enough to get around in it, but also doesn't feel too easy where you feel like you can't predict where players might go with this thing. So the speed is tuned for that. There's a boost function as well, but there's a long cooldown, about 25 seconds if I remember. So you got to time your boost just right. And we have jumps in the map where you can, if you boost it just right, you can get over gaps. You can get some serious airtime, but it's built as more of like a rotation tool. So players can get around the map in a much different way.
And even if you mess up a jump, it has an auto eject feature. So if you just stay in it as the vehicle's about to go away, pop everybody up into a little skydive, and then you'll be safe.
I think another interesting way like the vehicles can be used too is outside of just a way to like get around the map and to have different types of rotations. It actually has like defensive elements. Like you can kind of circle the wagons with them and use them as cover even too, right?
Yeah, you definitely can. Vehicle can't be destroyed. So it's pretty much a great way to set up your Watson fences around this thing and get the town using it as cover, which is definitely interesting. It can be destroyed once you push it off the map, and then there can't be another vehicle that will spawn in. And it's important to know that these vehicles are set up in very specific spots that'll always spawn in. So it's not a random spawn every time the map comes in. You'll always know where it is. You'll always know where it is. And if it's not on the platform, you know someone's taken it.
And even though it can't be destroyed, it does take damage in the sense where shooting the vehicle will damage all the players on the vehicle.
Yes, all the players in the vehicle will take shared damage when they're getting shot at. So it's this nice, big, meaty target. If someone's moving really fast, you just know you just have to shoot the vehicle. And then eventually, and it's really cool, but eventually, when everyone has shields and you break them all at once, you got these 3 shields breaking at once. You're just like, oh my God, I did so much damage and we got to capitalize.
Shared,
it brings out cool things.
Shared partial damage.
Yeah.
To be clear. Not shared full damage.
I think the easiest way that I found to explain the rules to people is no matter how many people are on the vehicle, you take a third of incoming damage. Is that roughly correct?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, a really important part about the vehicles going in was that we are a game that has legends in it with lots of cool abilities. And so if we're adding a new toy like this that goes around the map, it needs to interact with all of these abilities in sort of the way that you would expect. And even in maybe ways you wouldn't expect, but once you see it, you're like, oh, that's really clever. That's really fun. There's all these things I think that I want to try now that I can see this happening. I think the first one that we got working was the caustic gas mobile. So, if you're caustic, you walk up to the vehicle and throw your barrel at it, it'll stick to a spot. You throw another one, it'll stick to another spot. And you can drive that, now you can just imagine, like, drive the vehicle into a fight, let it sort of kick off and damage people. And if you think that it can happen, it probably can. Imagine Gibraltar's dome on the top of it, and you're driving around with a mobile Gibraltar dome. Or imagine Rampart sets up Sheila on the back, and now you're driving around the map shooting a minigun. It's pretty insane.
My absolute favorite I've seen people do in our internal playtest is you have a vehicle coming right at you, and you can put down Octane's jump pad, and it'll interact with the vehicle where it'll pop up, interact with it, and you could just, I'm sure people will troll with it where they're driving towards an edge, pop the jump pad, they hit over, and then now they're going inside the pit, and they got to re-rotate, and you can capitalize on that. A lot of cool things with the vehicle.
And one thing we get asked frequently is, can you ram people with it? And it's another one of those interesting choices we needed to decide. Similar to it taking shared damage and not blowing up. Like, the reason it takes shared damage and doesn't blow up is so that people can kill the team on it. The vehicle stays pristine, and you actually want to steal the vehicle and take it. And fighting a person on a team on a vehicle doesn't leave this like flaming husk that's about to blow up. So that was sort of the impetus for that decision. And then there is no ramming and killing players with it. And while I agree that sounds like, well, that would be fun, why not? And one thing we wanted to make sure that the vehicle also did is it maintained its place, right? Like its goal was to rotate across the map and pull off some interesting plays and sort of be cover in situations where you didn't have cover, save your friendlies from the ring. That happens a lot. Like, those things are really designed to happen. And what's not designed to happen is to be really degenerate in a fight. Like, come in, just boost like crazy, just guns blazing, slamming into people and driving really fast around everybody and making a fight generally super chaotic. If you try to do that, you're not going to kill anybody when you slam into them. You're just going to kind of bump them out of the way, and they're going to light up your car because you're going to be an easy shot, and you're going to wish you hadn't have done that. So,
but if you do that with caustic barrels attached,
well, yeah, and a bubble dome on top.
Yeah. Favorite vehicle interaction I've ever seen aside from the caustic barrels, because that's just hilarious to watch this like roving gas cloud drive into a crowd of people, is a Gibraltar that ulted his position, dropped the dome on the vehicle, and then just casually drove out. So like everyone else that was trying to avoid damage took damage, but he's just like, whatever, I'm out.
And we should point this out, even though it seems pretty obvious to us. When you are in one of the 2 passenger seats, you can still freely shoot your gun while the vehicle is driving. It's really, really hard at that speed to hit people. Hey, if you're good, you can do it.
Pray and spray. Yeah, that's a good
Forward to the
call out.
clips.
That's a good call out.
It's worth answering the question too that no, you cannot take the vehicle inside the phase runner. It's not part of the design of the vehicle. So you can try, but it will not work.
Were the like if you will you guys like bump into it, or do the players go through and the
Oh no,
vehicle-
players will not go through. If you're still in the vehicle, it'll just bump its way back off. You got to get off the vehicle and then go back.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. Good
Yeah,
call
it's
out.
funny. There's so many like questions that come up on the vehicle. The other one is, so yeah, the shared damage is a thing that happens if you spray the vehicle, but you can still headshot you can still hit the people, right? There's still room to do the skill shot, the Kraber shot from half a mile away and nail the
Driver.
pilot in one shot. So
Next up, our big thing that we have is a new legend, right? New season, new legend. We have to do that for sure. And it's introducing Horizon. So we've had our lore piece go out. So we have introduced and announced her so far. And joining us, we got Chris Winder from Respawn Vancouver, our family out in Vancouver. Your baby. So Chris, introduce us to Horizon and tell us a little bit about, from a design standpoint, your thought process behind her.
Yeah, so I'm Chris Winder from Respawn Vancouver. I'm a gameplay engineer and designer on Horizon. Yeah, so Horizon is our like gravitational manipulator. She's like an astronaut, a space scientist. She's really curious. She's really intelligent, capable of solving any problem. So yeah, we really wanted to kind of hit on that fantasy of a character that's all about gravity and manipulating that gravity in interesting ways. We definitely had the challenge of trying to find both fun ways of manipulating that gravity and fair ways of doing it, or especially in a game like Apex, a competitive shooter, you need that level of predictability of why am I using this and what's the advantage it's giving me. So we had lots of early ideas of like low grav, just fun houses and like arbitrary gravity areas and things like that were fun, but definitely harder to kind of track down and identify like why are you using those. She's got this really compelling backstory about selflessness and sacrifice, trying to like solve an energy crisis and being separated from her son and wanting to, use her ingenuity to get back to her son in any way that she can.
yeah, Chris, I have to ask you, why are you trying to make us cry so much with her videos and stuff?
Yeah, she's got that's definitely, that lore piece has got everyone. I know when we showed it to the team, there were tears all around, or proxies of tears, people cutting onions in the background or whatever that was. But yeah, there's definitely that story is a great one to tell and very relatable, I think, to a lot of people. So we're excited for that. Definitely as a parent myself, it's definitely one of those like, why do you gotta play this every time? Why do I gotta listen to this? So yeah, it's a good one.
So how does her kit work?
Yeah, so her kit is, like I said, all about gravity and manipulating that gravity. Her tactical is her gravity lift. So she throws that out and it creates this like basically anti-gravity field that she can go in. Players might have seen that in the tease that went out in season 6. So it lifts players up. They can escape to any height, jump out of it at any time, shoot from it, perch at the top and sort of like look out and maybe scout, try and find other teams. It's great for rotating, moving, getting high ground on players, or escaping from a dangerous situation, using it to maybe help your teammate, like a down teammate can crawl into it and then like float to a safe spot so you can res them. Some good stuff there. And that works really well with her passive ability, which is that she has a lot more air control than other legends. And she also takes greatly reduced fall impacts when she lands. So most legends, when they land from like a great height, you get this view bob, you slow down your horizontal velocity a lot, and she takes her penalty from that is much less, so she can really kind of like hit the ground running. And so when she's up in the air in her gravity lift, she can really maneuver where she wants to go and get where she needs to be.
And then that ultimate's something else. I remember the first time I saw that.
Yeah, that's right. It was definitely always a challenge because we wanted to really like sell that fantasy of the black hole. Like it needs to be a black hole. It needs to look like a black hole and act that way. But it can't just yank players and hold them when, our game and dying is such a big deal. In our game, you're not just going to get respawned. So we really needed to balance that. And it was definitely a tricky proposition trying to balance the amount of force that it uses to pull players, how long it holds them there, and all that. But yeah, we definitely got to a good place. We spent a long time on that. So excited to see players use it and see what they do. It rips doors open. So if you can't just hide behind a door, it'll rip those doors open and pull players out. It interacts with other abilities as well. It'll interacts with the vehicles. And so that was definitely one of the goals, because our character deals with gravity and these forces. You sort of have an expectation of it affecting other abilities. And so there are quite a lot of crossovers there with vehicles and with projectiles. Like you might throw a grenade or other things like that into the black hole, and you'll get like a little bit of a pulling force there. There's some cool combinations with her tactical and other abilities that you can throw, and they kind of get lifted and come out the other side. I've seen people link Octane's jump pad with the gravity lift. As a team, they sort of throw the gravity lift, the Octane throws the jump pad through the gravity lift, it gets sent through, the team can jump through that and then end up on the jump pad on the other side and really get like quite a big rotation out of it.
Oh, I didn't know about that play. That's super cool. That's a really cool play. I also too, like, you know, as a Titanfall fan too, the air control in there feels very familiar from, you know, playing Titanfall. So it's just like a nice, like, kind of remembrance. And even like the way her abilities work, especially, you know, with the ultimate, remind me of like Arc Star plays, you know, you could do where you're throwing the Arc Star and using that to curve L Star shots or whatever. So it's kind of neat to see some
Gravity Star.
Gravity Stars.
Yeah.
Right, Gravity Star. I'm sorry. Still, it's been a long time.
It's been a minute.
So many stars, you know.
Yeah, really cool, Chris. I think she's going to be a really interesting addition to the mix, and such a likable character too. I'm excited to play her, but also just learn more about her and see what our amazing story and narrative folks do. I think next up, we're going to talk about clubs. We're team games. Social aspects have always been a big thing for us here. So introducing Chad Armstrong over on the Devstream with the Squeak Squad. They're holding it down for him.
They're working hard right now.
They're working,
Super hard.
Life over there. Chad, walk us through like clubs. What's that experience going to be like for players?
Right. So clubs are a way to like be social within Apex. We're adding a new tab in the lobby that's simply labeled club. So it'll be right next to the play tab. And you can go in there, you can create a club and get your friends in, and then you've got your own dedicated chat room. You've got the ability to broadcast an invite to your friends so that, you know, you can get everybody into a match at once. It's cross-platform compatible, so, you know, like you can get your friends on Xbox or Steam or PC or whatever all together at the same time in the same club, and just invite whoever you want, or just invite everyone. But we also saw an opportunity with clubs for users that might not have friends to play with, don't have like a regular crowd, or even, you know, like the friends that they play with on cross-platform, now that that's available to them. So we've made it so that clubs can be searched for, and we actually have like various search functions that you can use just within the same tab. So if you're not already the member of a club, you can choose to find a club, and you can look for name, you can look for privacy setting, and clubs are able to activate search tags. It's kind of the bread and butter of being able to search for clubs. And if you just look for the search tags that are the most relevant to you, we bubble those results up in your search to help you find a club of people that play like you. Part of the goal of clubs ultimately is to help players that have kind of been limited to the experience of playing with randoms, which can be a bit of a mixed bag. I say, remembering the time I died, and then instead of resurrecting me, my random like looted my death box. That was great. Yeah, it's like a personal vendetta. I built an entire feature to stop that guy. You know, there's a number of experiences, positive or negative, that you can have with completely random players. So clubs is trying to allow you to find people that play the same way you do, play the same modes you do, have the same, you know, personal dispositions you do. And part of that is through the search tags that a user can set up when they're creating their club. Creating the club is actually really easy. You give it a name, a tag that'll appear to your squad mates while you're in a party, and then you can set up to 5 search tags. You get a sweet logo that represents you whenever you're in your clubhouse. Then you've also got some privacy settings. So like your club can be open and just anyone can search for it and join it. If you want to create a club that's more for like a ranked grind, you can set like a required account level and rank, like highest rank achieved, and players won't be able to join unless they meet those requirements. Or you could just make your party, or your club rather, you can make your club invite only. And that means that it won't show up in searches, and the only way people can join your club is if you extend an invite to them. And yeah, and then from there, you know, you can go in, you've got like a chat room, you've got like a little chat available so you can communicate with your friends between matches. You have this timeline that kind of shows you like, oh, McCord got first in trios, or Devose has just joined the club, and those kind of things. So you can see who's coming and going. You can see what people are up to. You can get a squad put together really quick and then jump into matches.
It feels like this is like a perfect follow-up from crossplay, where it was like a lot of like our conversations and of course players' conversations are like, man, I can start like playing with people at the studio or just other friends who I know play the game, but we're on different platforms, so we can never like squad up. And so there's a lot of like fun celebration around that. And clubs feels like just a great evolution of like, hey, you already have crossplay, and now integrating that into this, like the social stuff, I feel like has really come together, I think, in our last 2 updates, like for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And definitely a lot of what informed clubs to be what it is was crossplay as a feature being developed. You can still, like, if you're the type of user that doesn't use crossplay, you've disabled crossplay on your platform, you can still create clubs, you can still participate with other people that also have their crossplay disabled. So if you're on Origin and your crossplay disabled, you can still club up with other Origin members so long as they're also crossplay disabled. But some of the features, such as being able to search for members to send invites to, are crossplay required.
Yeah, do you have like a thing?
What? I don't know.
There's something on your shoulder.
No, I'm good. I'm sorry. A bit of danger.
One thing about clubs that I think is really, like, if you have a group of friends that you already play with a lot and you're on crossplay and everything, clubs gives you sort of like this layer of extra features and extra interactions with them that's really nice. You can see when they're playing, you can see when they're winning, when they rank up, all these things that like that happen maybe when you're offline or when you're playing and not partied up with them. You can chat with them specifically. So you've got that layer of like new features of social interaction, but it also is, I mean, really what Chad was speaking to, I just wanted to elaborate on, is that player who doesn't have that large group of friends playing Apex, or even the same time that they play, right? Like I play a lot of times in the morning when I'm up doing stuff, and a lot of people that work here and my friends like play at night. So like I have a lot of Apex friends that don't play when I play. So it solves people that leave the match early.
Yeah.
You know what? If you're the type of person that likes to drop with a squad and leave after you die, just join a club that likes to do that. I'm sure there will be one. And then everyone's having a great time.
Or you can make your own. You can call it Team Abandonment or something like that.
It's
Team Everyone Left Behind.
TPP rates.
TPP rates anonymous.
But if you're not that person and you want to have hopefully a more consistent squad experience, you join a club that values that. And as long as you're grouping up with them and they're active and people are online, you should just have a generally better experience playing the game. Like that was the goal, and I'm really excited to see that come through, you know?
Yeah. We've always considered Apex to like shine its brightest when you're playing with a pre-made squad, not just in terms of like the ability to strategize and win, but also just in terms of the enjoyment of interacting with your squad mates as people you know, as friends. One of my big hopes, I think one of our big hopes for clubs as a feature, is that we bring that part of the experience to more players that normally play with randoms and have kind of the one-off, sometimes good, often bad experience of personality conflict or playstyle conflict.
Next up, launching something else we've talked about for a while, and that's here. It's really exciting. Apex available on Steam, which is really, really cool. So with the launch on November 4th, you will be able to download and play Apex off Steam, which is really cool to have that. There's a couple of cool things that are sort of attached to this. So if you are already someone who plays the game on PC Origin, we do have cross progression specifically on PC and only on PC. So if you're playing on Origin and you want to switch over to Steam and play that, you can do that, and your progression will carry over. Another cool thing that's exclusive to Steam is we have 3 gun charms that are Half-Life and Portal influenced. We're big fans of both of those games here at the studio, that are be available for a limited time when you download and log in and play on Steam. So if you want to grab those gun charms, looking to get over on Steam, that's going to be available now, which is super, super cool. Last thing we'll talk about quickly before we get into some details on the patch notes is we've reworked how progression works in the Battle Pass. a bit for this season. So, Cord, I'll throw to you to kind of explain how that's going to work for season 7.
We sort of just took a pass at making it a little easier to understand how to get levels in your battle pass, how completing challenges equates to getting levels in your battle pass. In season 6 right now, when you play, you complete challenges, you see the numbers fill up, you see these bars fill up, and those sort of equate to a number that you have to hit to complete a battle pass level. So what we've done is we've simplified that, and a challenge now equates to a number of stars. And it takes 10 stars to get a battle pass level, and each challenge gives you some number of stars, right? So, a daily might give you 3 stars or 5 stars if it's a little bit harder. And it's a lot easier to see, like, I just need to complete these challenges to get this next level battle pass level. So that's really nice. But then sort of a quality of life that comes with that is we took the opportunity to improve how it looks in the lobby. So right now you see in season 6, you see, 4 daily challenges. And then to dive into your weeklies, you kind of have to click the button or you have to use the top menu to go into it. So now we've sort of combined some stuff on here. So you can see your dailies, but you can also see your top weeklies, we call it, which are the top 5, I think, weeklies that you're closest to finishing. So this changes a lot, right? When you play a game of Rampart and then you go back and check that, suddenly you got some kills with Rampart. So it's like, oh, now you should play more Rampart because you're about to finish these. And it's just sort of a quicker way to see your progression through your weeklies, which is really nice. And then we stack your event, like if there's an event live, the challenges are in there too. And then all of that is also present in the map, which we got a lot of requests for. So when you're playing, you pull up the main map, you see your dailies, and that's it. Now you can see your dailies, your top weeklies, and your event challenges in there and see where you are. So a lot of quality of life for knowing what to play and when to get more battle pass.
All right, let's get into some patch notes on some changes we got coming in there. So Daniel Klein and Kaylee, our VP of Barks. We'll kick things off with which legends, my friends. So what do we got in store for season 7?
Yeah, I need to check in with the VP of Barks to see if she's available. Yeah, she is. Look at that.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Hi.
Now
now we can start. Hi, Katie. You ready? She's ready. All right. So we got a bunch of legend changes coming in season 7. I'm going to try to speed run us through the small changes first up. So we have a bunch of small changes that are not meant to change how a character is played, just give characters a bunch more power for different reasons. So first up, Bangalore's ultimate, the delay before the missiles explode, is going to go down from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. Again, this ability is still not a kill ability. It's a make people leave an area in the near future ability. It's just a little bit more power. Octane, similarly, Octane has a pretty low trios win rate. So any squad with him on it doesn't have the highest chance of winning, but he has a very good encounter win rate, which means selfishly, and I'm sure a lot of people who play Octane will get this experience, selfishly, he gets a lot of kills. He will charge in there and kill stuff. So we don't want to give him too much extra power in the moment. We do want to give him a little bit more power outside of encounters. So what we're doing is we are letting him heal up faster between encounters. We're doubling the passive heal rate. That sounds crazy, but we're doubling it from half a hit point per second to 1 hit point per second. Right, Kitty? That's not too crazy. And then finally, similarly to Octane, another character who is doing well in her own bracket, Watson. Watson is sort of the anti-Octane. She is really, really good in competitive. She is a must-have, must-pick in competitive. She's not seen that much at the lower level play. So I wanted to find a buff that specifically gives her power in low-level play and not so much in high-level play. And what I decided to do is increase the damage that people take from walking into her fences. Because at the high level, people generally don't walk into Watson fences. They generally know how to play around them. In lower levels where she's barely picked and she doesn't have the greatest success rate, we decided to just give her 5 more damage. That's the small stuff. We have 2 mid-sized changes. One of them is specifically aimed at one of the most frustrating things that happens in Apex Legends, which is walking into caustic gas. Caustic gas has to be scary. It has to be something that makes you leave an area. Otherwise, the ability doesn't work. But one of the ways that it has been scary so far is by blurring your view. making it very, very hard for you to see what you're aiming at or to fight back in general. And aside from the power, it also feels really, really bad when you're trying to do a thing and everything's blurry. And on top of that, when you aim down sights, your reticule gets blurred out as well, which is just, oof, it's really tough. So we removed that. You no longer receive a vision blur from being inside caustic gas. What you still get is the gas still exists in the world, so you can see through it. And when you walk into the gas, the same thing happens that happens when you walk into Bangalore smoke. We attach some of that gas to your view screen, to what you see of the world. So it's still gonna be hard to look through it, but it's not gonna be hard to aim and shoot because everything's blurred. The other mid-sized change that we have is Mirage. Mirage generally performs decently well now. The big problem with Mirage is that so much about him is mind games. So whenever we make him a little bit stronger, we see his win rate and pick rate go up. And then a couple of weeks later, everybody else who plays Apex has learned the new thing, and the mind game becomes weaker again because it's like, oh yeah, I get it. You can mimic your movement with decoys. I can now tell which ones are mimicked decoys. So we're trying one more thing to sort of like give him a stable place as the bamboozler in chief, which is decoys get health. And before you panic, they are not usable as a shield because that would be broken. They do have health. They have 45 health, so precisely enough for one wingman shot, but bullets pass through them and don't lose any of their damaging potential by passing through them. Plus, the decoy flickers briefly as the bullet passes through them. So if you're paying attention, you should be able to tell that you are shooting a decoy. However, it means that you can no longer just spray down and Mirage Ultimate and get rid of all the decoys instantly. The hope is it'll make it a little bit easier to capitalize on the confusion that your decoys achieve. And it's a precarious balance because one thing that people often suggest is, why don't you just have the decoys shoot blanks? And sure, we could do that, but the damage that that would do to our combat legibility, to the ability for players to understand what's even going on in combat, I think that is like the nuclear option that I would very much not like to go to unless I absolutely have to. So for now, decoy self, let's see how that goes. Okay, we have two big-ish power-up changes to the two lowest performing legends in the game. And to nobody's surprise, they're the two most recently released ones, Loba and Rampart. Loba is getting a large buff to her black market. You can take any amount of ammo you want out of a black market. It doesn't count toward the 2 slots that you have. So if you want to scoop up 400 heavy through black market, go right ahead. You can do that and still pick up 2 other items. That is very powerful. I'm a little bit terrified of that change. The thing I'm terrified of is, what if you come to a POI and just like centralize all the ammo in one location? What does that do to the playability of the rest of the space? We'll see how it goes. Many Loba mains come to us and say, well, what we really need is a change to her tactical. And while that's not off the table, the reason I'm not touching it right now is her encounter win rate. So her chance to win individual encounters is pretty good. It's not high, but it's solid. It's where I'd like to see most characters be, which suggests to us that selfishly she already does pretty well with the tactical. There's definitely stuff we could buff there if we wanted to, but the thing that confuses me is that her trios win rate, so the chance that her squad has of winning the game with a Loba on them, is so low. So I want to see if just saying, and on top of giving you the loot you want, I also solve all of your ammo problems, whether that will move the needle. And then we'll take it from there and see what else we need to do for her. And then Rampart, similarly, Rampart isn't performing too well. We are doing 2 changes to speed up her setup. So to be clear, we don't want the way she plays to change drastically. She should still be a setup defensive character who needs to prepare for an engagement or fortify a location against enemies to be successful. She shouldn't just like sneak up on you, plop down her HMG and murder you with it. But within that pattern of she has to set up, we can give her more power, and that's exactly what we're doing. The amped wall, the time for the little arms to come up and the amped wall to build, goes down from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. And the amount of time that Sheila needs to spin up before the first bullet comes out goes down from 2 seconds to 1.25 seconds. And then finally, we come to a completely non-controversial, very easy to talk about subject, Pathfinder. I think we oversold the change that we did in 6.1 as a buff. I think internally we were all like, Yeah, it's a buff in some situations. It may also be a nerf in some other situations. I don't think we were too clear on that. I think part of it is that we were very scared to buff a character who is this strong, which is still Pathfinder's case. So I'm going to rip the band-aid off and tell you the thing that you're going to hate right away. And I'm going to tell you all the other things that we're buying ourselves with this. We are slightly increasing Pathfinder's hitbox size, and we're keeping low profile on him for now. The reason we don't immediately take off low profile is because it's very, very hard for us to predict how much of a win rate change that hitbox change will cause. It's entirely possible that he will take a meaningful hit in terms of win rate, in which case taking low profile off him is absolutely on the table. What I didn't want to see happen is we make this hitbox change, we take low profile off, he goes up by 4% win rate, and we have to put low profile back on him, because I think Pathfinder mains will hate us even more for that, but I don't know. So that is the way that we're trying to control his power in this patch. What that buys us, however, is a meaningful buff to his grappling hook. We are continuing the work from 6.1, and we are reacting to your feedback. So much of the feedback was around, well, I really dislike the fact that this now means if I do it correctly, if I do a really, really long jump and chain all of my other movement tech into the jump, it's effectively a nerf. And we agree with you. That was our mistake. We should not have punished you for being good at what is really, really fun. So I made a couple of changes, but what it basically comes down to is I now have a mathematical guarantee that no matter how great you are at grappling, you will never get more than 35 seconds effective cooldown. So that means we will never count more than 5 seconds of travel time toward your cooldown. And even after 5 seconds of traveling at maximum speed, you will never get more than a 30-second cooldown. So 5 plus 30, 35. We're going to stay at the 35. Additionally, you don't need to be on the ground for the grapple to be counted as finished. You only have to drop down to a certain speed. That speed was increased, almost doubled compared to what it is in 6.1. So you can, grapples will count as finished much, much more quickly. And then finally, we have a number under the hood that basically says, this is the max distance at which you will hit max cooldown, which is now 30 seconds. That number got doubled and a little extra. So it's a lot of tuning around what feels right. And we have been receiving your feedback. You've been giving it loud and clear. Please continue. Actually, I'm joking, but like, this is very important to us. We can test and theorize and math out stuff as long as we want to. Nothing compares to actually getting live feedback from people who play the game. And what I really, really hope that Pathfinder mains understand is that no change is ever final. I think that's it. I think that's all I have.
Oh, that's it?
That's it
That's
already.
all you did for season 7, Daniel? My goodness.
I know.
Dude.
I'm lazy.
Next up, weapons, and introducing Devin Weiss to our dev streams. Welcome, Devin.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Your baby doing the weapons and some of the stuff that's affecting the meta for weapons in season 7. We got some changes here, so walk us through that. What can we expect?
Sure. Yeah. Overall, I think we believe the weapons meta is in a pretty good spot right now. There's nothing too overpowered, especially after the nerfs to devotion in 6.0 to bring it back in line. I think we're pretty happy with where things are. So now we're mostly focused on trying to provide new ways for certain guns to shine in areas maybe they didn't shine in before, as well as just some minor tweaks to bring some guns up, some guns down to sort of keep things close to where we want them to be. The first big thing going in this patch is the new quick draw holster hop up. So this is a hop up that's going to equip to the wingman and the RE45. And this basically to really help these guns more of a sidearm option and be able to be used especially more in close combat. It will reduce the amount of time it takes to switch to the weapons. It will reduce the amount of time it takes to ADS with the weapons. And it will also provide a little bit of a benefit in terms of your hip fire spread with them. So this opens some new opportunities to use these weapons in new ways, especially in close quarters combat when every half second matters. Having a little bit quicker time to bring the guns out can really make a difference between whether or not you win or lose. And also the hip fire changes can provide some new ways to use them because the spread bonus is actually higher when you're not actively moving. So you can try doing some little dances around and see if you can time shots to get the maximum benefit while still being hard to hit. So maybe this is a little bit more of a reason to not slide everywhere, but we expect sliding will still happen most of the time. The next thing is the L-Star. L-Star is getting quite a few changes. The overall sort of impact is we're trying to make it easier and more useful to manage the overheat mechanic with it. So basically, we're trying to make the recoil pattern a little bit better, and then make it easier to stay within that overheat period where you're getting like the easy recoil and you're not overheating the gun. Just basically, if you feather the trigger correctly, and as you use the gun, you'll sort of learn when to hold it, when to sort of let go, and you'll be able to do a lot more reliable damage with it. So we hope this will really help bring the L-Star back up in the meta and make it another sort of useful item that people really want to get good with and try and learn. Another significant change is for the Sentinel. And the Sentinel has been kind of useful in certain areas, specifically with dealing with the red shields. If you charged up your Sentinel, you could one-shot the red shields. But beyond that, it sort of was not very useful. And it was also awkward because more people have red shields and 225 health towards the end of games. And at the end of games, you really don't want to be using a sniper rifle. So the change we've made is to, instead of doing extra bonus damage to shields, it's going to do just general bonus damage. Now the multiplier is going down, but it's basically going to go from 70 damage to 88 damage now when charged. So what that means is you could potentially, if you get a headshot, you can one-shot somebody with blue armor. And in general, it's more beneficial to go after people if they have lower armor values. So this should hopefully provide a way for the Sentinel to be more useful in the early and mid game when people have lower health amounts and the combat ranges are longer than they normally are towards the end of games. So hopefully this will provide another way for the Sentinel to be used a little bit more. And then last sort of big change going on is the R99 is coming back out of the crate. For season 6, we took it out and we let the Volts sort of come in and see how it went. And the answer was the Volt basically became as popular as the R99 was before it went in the crate. So we're pretty confident that bringing out the R99 with the Volt, it should provide a good opportunity for people to try and see like which gun do they like better, which gun do they prefer more, and not just everyone trying to use R99 or as in season 6, everyone's using the Volt. So hopefully this provide a little bit more competition, and we're very curious to see how things shake out in terms of the SMG meta going forward. With that, the Prowler is going into the crate. It is a very powerful and very versatile weapon in sort of all forms. It should hopefully still provide, like, you should still be very happy to get it no matter when you see it in the crate, because it's good early game and mid game and late game. So it should be pretty useful to grab out. And that also means with the new hop up going in, we are going into the loot pool. We're taking a hop up out. So the select fire will no longer be available, though you can still use it on the crate Prowler. So the crate Prowler will still have the fire select. You can still go between 5-round burst and full auto. This does mean that the Havoc will now only have the turbocharger as a valid hop up. And one last weapons meta thing, it's less meta thing, but more of a quality of life choice that we just want to call out. We usually, when you equip a new attachment from the ground, it would throw away your old attachment. What we now do is, if that old attachment would be an upgrade for your other weapon, we now attach that to your other weapon, so you don't have to sort of manually try and manage like, oh, I just dropped this extra barrel stabilizer, I want to equip that to my other gun, and now basically do that step for you. So that should hopefully provide a lot more just sort of simplicity in dealing with the attachments, picking up attachments during the game and make it just useful to, like, you know, get the attachments you want and move, not have to worry about moving this around. We have a few
low-key best season 7 change right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, like, when you realize it's like, why, you know, I'm very glad we did it now, basically. There are some other minor changes, buffs and nerfs that you can read in the patch notes, but those are the major ones we wanted to hit.
All right, thanks, guys. Really cool stuff happening with both Legends and weapons. I'll be a Sentinel Loba main, I think, for season 7 now after talking with you guys through it. We also have some interesting stuff happening with Evo Armor, Daniel, that I know you wanted to talk about as well. How's that kind of work for season 7?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it. Just to be clear, I didn't actually do the work, but I'm glad to take credit and talk about it. So Evo Armor, we introduced in season 6. We had to follow up a little bit, and the TTK change that we introduced initially was the short TTK was not well received. We made it so that that we go all the way up to 125 again. We looked at data that came in over the course of season 6, and we decided that there were slightly too many people that get to red armor. It's slightly too common, particularly in the late game. So what we're doing in season 7 is we are increasing the amount of damage you need to do in order to upgrade your armor, particularly, I think if I remember correctly, from purple to red. So the exact numbers will be in the patch notes and you can read them there. The intention is not to majorly shake up anything, just slightly decrease how often we see like full squads with all red armor in the end of the game.
Very cool. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you at home, we launch on 11/4, November 4th with Steam, new map, new legend, vehicles, clubs, meta changes, just all sorts of crazy stuff. Just really credit to the team on all the amazing work across the board. And thank you guys for joining us. For those of you at home, go play when this is live. Have fun. Give us that feedback. We'll be looking for it on how everything is doing. And be safe. And we'll see you in December for our last episode of the year. Can't believe it. Hard to believe. Woo. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.